my point is that we've been doing some things very, very right. We've been doing them well in Pennsylvania. There are people who are committed. There's very good leadership coming out of Philadelphia and Harrisburg and Pittsburgh and Erie that have mobilized people all across the state to speak up on behalf of gays and lesbians, and we're very grateful for that. But we can't rest there, because what we have been doing is beating off and stalling and preventing passage of the amendments and bills. What we have to do is shift into a more positive kind of frame of mind. And that means that we all have to become more active. We have to begin to speak out, just as we are this evening, in terms of forums and public education on the rights of all people to equality. This is a message that I am hopeful that we'll share with our friends, our family, our co-workers, our neighbors. Unless we do this, the voices that they will hear will be the negative voices of the religious right. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they hear the more positive reasons for same-sex marriage. The other point, just very quickly, that I want to make is that we're at a point where some of the decisions that are coming down from the courts will also involve the legislatures. And even though those are in other states, your commitment by your support and your financial support for the national and the statewide organizations, gay and lesbian organizations, is critically important. We draw upon the funds of organizations like the Human Rights Campaign, Law and Legal and Education Fund, the Task Force, and others, in order to fight off these amendments and these bills. In turn, we need to be supporting those organizations, so that they have the resources to send people into states. For example, Maryland is going to have a decision out of their Supreme Court probably within the next 6 months. Connecticut, California, New York, and Iowa will also be having decisions coming out of their courts. All of those are cases in which the lower courts have supported the right of same-sex marriage. The appeals have gone to the Supreme Court. Those are very, very costly. So again, the ACLU, along with those other groups I mentioned, are paying the bill to make sure that we are represented before the courts. And so my plea would be to consider joining those groups if you don't belong to them, contributing both your activity and your funds to the degree that you are able to make sure that the fight can continue.
Okay, it's about 22 after 7, and any of you have, just really have something else that has to be divulged?
Oh, I'm sure we do. Okay.
You've asked these folks to express themselves.
Right.
Now let's make sure that happens. So you're welcome to make your own explanation of how you feel, or to address it to any of our panelists.
My main concern,
Doris, if you don't mind, if you could just stand.
I thought everything was excellent, and what do we do, though, to get the message out in the sense of there are about 25 people here, and we all know each other except for a few. So we've got to do something to advertise. This has got to be repeated. This must be repeated, and we've got to do something to see if we can get a couple hundred people. I don't know. Who has ideas? What can we do?
First step is simply for gay, well, first of all, you have to be vocal about that. Step number 2, or thing for people who are GLBT, use your full name and face. Nothing that is, if you notice that Eric read a study a while ago that when they were looking at the, how the votes had gone with the, anti-marriage, I don't want to call it marriage protection thing, because it sounds like heterosexuals are just, well, let's face it, the only reason anybody's straight is because they're just too stupid or lazy to be anything any better. That would make sense if we're looking at it that way. But there was a huge difference in terms of age, and it's because younger people have been more exposed to that. So if you want something really small, show up, use your face, use your name. That's nothing to take place of that. You know, simply being involved, coming to stuff like this, going to other events. But actually, I think that a lot of the stuff happens. Public forums are a good thing, but actually, a lot of the stuff is. Okay, I was doing computer support up at this one Catholic elementary school, and the person made like, you know, well, we should have some internet filtering software because people might see, you know, by typing the word jeans, and they might see, oh, this gay lesbian jean site, and I'm kind of like, my lip kind of curled, and like my boss and my, you know, another coworker there, they knew what my story was. Like, I didn't say anything. Well, I was back there a little bit later, and the guy said, oh, what kind of, and I'm like, I wanted to bring something up. So he said, like, well, what kind of PC do you have? I'm like, aha, well, let's see, I have this kind of a PC, and my husband, I was in a relationship at the time, has this kind of a PC. And I think that sometimes the smallest stuff, you don't think that, you know, I don't want to tell anybody, you think that you don't want to tell anybody your private life, but I think that is the singular, most powerful thing that we can do. So.
I agree with Mike. I think that, yeah, the public forums are very important. Public education is very important. And to the extent that we can do that, I think that we should be doing that. But I agree with him that one-on-one is more powerful. You know, your discussion with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and your lobbying of your legislators is very, very important. Your call to your state representative or your state senator or your congressperson or senator in Washington, identifying yourself by name, by address as a constituent, and expressing your opinion very strongly is just very, very important. So, you know, I agree with that.
I agree with Mike too, and I think that's harder to do than you might think. It is hard to do that. It is hard when you're sitting with some family members who you love or whatever, and somebody makes a stupid remark, to not just let it go. But we all sort of have to commit to not just letting it go. You know, to saying in the nicest way possible, no, that's not exactly right. I don't agree with that. Or, gee, what about Joe? You know, he's gay. Don't you think he has the right to, blah, blah. You know, I mean, there's ways to do it in a nice way with people who you don't want to hurt their feelings, but on the other hand, you have to make a commitment not to be quiet. It's easy to be quiet. I mean, I remember, you know, all kinds of times when, you know, you laughed at a joke that you really didn't think was funny because it's what you do, you know, and you have to stop doing it. We have to stop doing it.
Okay, so don't be quiet. I want to try to get some of that quietness to roar here.
How do we get the media to pick up on some of these truths rather than...
Oh, no, ask him.
Oh, great, put him on the spot, thank you.
That would be Cameron. Well, there you go. I mean,
No, I do. I mean, I would just love to see like the newspaper list 1,000 differences or something like that. I mean, it would be very brave of them, I'm sure, but...
It's going to be difficult to put them in that position. You can nag them for it, you can...
well, I mean, you
But
know,
the
fair
other
and
thing, you know,
balanced.
it's done conversely to us. The Pennsylvania Catholic Bishop's website was at best a fiction, worthy of a really good novelist, and at worst outright lies. Said that you could get these rights just by going with your department to the attorney. I've had a friend who's been through this. It cost over $3,000, and they're not airtight. If an amendment is passed, they can all be challenged in court because a court is forbidden from recognizing devices used to grant the rights normally associated with marriage, up to and including, in some states, joint checking accounts.
You can write letters to the editor.
You can challenge any
Yes.
protection that's taken.
Well,
Excellent.
And they
Yeah,
might.
write letters to the editors that will sign your name on a letter to the, you know, and you give the, you know, using the information to do that. Way cool, because people need to hear.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
There was a couple hands back here. I just want to make sure that you came here tonight, you invested your time, and just want to make sure that this side balances out.
yeah. And I don't want to step on anybody's